Not that I'm the best expert at these things about guessing how long things are going to take. Good evening. We're learning again as a Chosr for Shlema Filan Chaya Baserach. We're at the Mishnah on Daf Ayin Zayin Amud Aleph, which continues on the same vein, which is I think going to go on for a while about mixtures of different things. Ivrei Chatash and Sa'avru be'ivrei Oila. So, as we know, when you bring a chatas, you have to you have to burn the chelev and the shtei akloyos, the yeseres hakoved, whatever those things are, the chelev and certain portions of the behema gets burnt on the mizbeach as they imurim, and the rest gets given to the kehanim to eat. So that's ivrei chatas, but in this case the evarim of the chatas, not those imurim, but the actual basar of the chatas. Shenis'aru be'ivrei oila got mixed with the basar of the oila. Oila is different than a chatas that the whole thing, the whole animal gets burnt on the mizbech. So you've got a problem. If you remember, we saw in the previous Gemara that you're not once you bring the shira, once you burn the shirayim, burn the emurim, you're not allowed to burn anything else. You can't bring extras onto the mizbech. So Belezer Omer Yitain Lemaila. Rabbi Eliezer says, nevertheless, you can bring this carbon royani basar achatos mumayla kilo hinetzim. Like we said in the previous Gemara, we are allowed to look at whatever extra is being burnt, not as shirayim after the emurim were burnt, but rather that you just burnt some extra wood. Look at it as wood. It's not look like you're bringing something else. To Uber the Chum say no, you can't burn it right away in the base of Sreifa because the oila is required and the emurim are really required to be burnt on the mizbeach, so you can't go take them out to the base hadesh and burn them there or by the yama. What you do is you wait for it to become nicer. Once it becomes past the time that it can be brought as a kosher carbon, then you go bring it and you burn it not on the mizbeach, but just burn it to dispose of it. My time at Rabbi Eliezer. Where does Rabbi Eliezer get this from? That he says you can recharacterize the extra chatas basar that has to be burnt because we're not sure which is the oila, which is the chatas. So you got to burn the whole thing just in case it's an oila. You certainly can't eat the oila. In case it's oila, you can't eat any of it. Where does Rabbi Eliezer say that you can take that extra basar, which is really the basar of the chatas, and treat it as eitzim and burn on the mizbech? So he says, Amar Kra, vel hamizbech la yalu l'reach nichayach. The pasuk says you can't bring it on the mizbech as a reach nichayach. So this is a sequence of two psukim, which I think Rashi brought them before. Yeah, on Ayin Vav and Aleph, Rashi brought Ki kol psa'ar b'chol dvash. The pasuk tells you that lo saktiri menu ishel Hashem. You're not allowed to burn sa'ir, which is what the women are making sourdough from these days, and dvash is honey, I think, from dates. You can't bring that. The Torah there's a issa to burn that on the mizbeach, and then the pasuk comes and tells you, and the pasuk says about that loy saktiri menu ishel Hashem. Which we have learned, that was what told us that you can't bring anything extra, anything that already had its was already burnt on the mizbeach, the proper part. You can't burn anything else from it. And then the pasuk then continues, carbon rachis takru v'aisam Hashem. The bikurim, the pasuk says that you can bring. And but the pasuk said, the Torah says you could bring a carbon rachis, but you could bring it. You don't bring it as a carbon, meaning you don't burn it on the mizbeach. But you could bring it to the mizbeach, right? You have to, if you remember, we said about the bikurim that you bring it near to the mizbeach, and that's where he says the kriya. And then the Torah says you can't bring it as a reich nichayach. Okay, so But the main thing that we want to get out of this is the pasuk that tells you that you cannot burn once you've done the proper amount of what you're supposed to burn on the mizbech. You can't burn any leftovers, any shirayim on the mizbech, and that pasuk is specifically talking about isser of bringing sa'or and dvash on the mizbech. So we zok my time in the Beliezer. The pasuk ends off. The second pasuk says that you can bring the bikurim to the mizbech, but you can't bring it as a reach nichayach. So that tells you the reich nichayach ayatamala, v'atamala l'shem eitzim. It's a limitation. It says although the Torah says you can't bring, which we learned from the first pasuk, you can't bring from the shirayim on the mizbech. It's coming to tell you that's only if you're bringing it as a reich nichayach, if you bring it to as a carbon. But if you just bring it and you say I want it to be eitzim, that's okay. So that's why Rabbi Eliezer says if you have a mixture of a chatas and ayla, just burn the chatas and we say the Torah only said you can't bring as a reich nichayach. When it said this isser of burning the shirayim, of bringing the shirayim on the mizbech, it says it's only if you do it l'reich nichayach. For Rabbanon, miat rachmana oisa. He says no. The Torah says layai oisam lashem takrivu oisam lashem. That's oisam is a miat. Oisam who di'atamala. Val atamala l'shem eitzim. It's only legabi dvash and sa'ir, which are the subjects of this pasuk. And that was saying that the reich nichayach is limiting and saying you could bring it l'shem eitzim. Avol midi achrin aloi. But anything else, like for example, a regular chatas, is not going to be an exception. A chatas is not dvash and it's not sa'ir. It's dam. Or I'm sorry, it's not dam, it's basar, I mean to say. So that's not exclusive. That's why the Rabbanan don't agree with Rabbi Eliezer's exclusion. Rabbi Eliezer, what does Rabbi Eliezer do with Isam? Isam hu deboi derabi lacha kevesh. He says, the Torah says you can't bring it on the Mizbeach. He's saying when it says Isam, that it's limited only to Sa'ir and Dvash, that's talking about bringing it onto the Kevesh. You're not allowed to burn it on even on the Kevesh. That even the Kevesh is going to be also. You're going to be over on this lav of burning the Shirayim. That's only going to be Legabi the dvash and the sa'ar, but the reich nichayach part that's going the other direction and saying that you can bring it as long as it's not a reich nichayach, that's going on everything. It's not just on dvash and sa'ar. So oisam u'durabi l'cha kevesh k'mizbech avol midi achrin ilai v'rabbanan tarti sham shmamino. The Rabbanan say you can learn out both. No. The Oisim tells you that Sa'ir and Vash are different than everything else. Both Legabe that it only is limited to it's only the lav of burning the Shirayim is only on Sa'ir and Vash. It's only when you have in mind to burn it, but not as a Reich Nichayach, but not when you're doing it L'Shem Eitzim. And also L'Chumra that there's going to be a issa that the Kevesh is going to be treated as the Mizbech itself if you burn on it. So that was the way we understand the Machlokes in the Mishnah. It's a Machlokes between Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim of whether you can say Royanis Ke'etzim when you have a mixture of Oila and a Chatas. So the Tanya. We have a different brisa, a brisa that explains the Machlokes Rabbi Eliezer and the Rabbanan differently. Am Rabbi Yehuda, loy nechelku Rabbi Eliezer v'cham al ivrei chatash and s'avra b'ivrei ela. They don't argue about the case that our Mishnah said they argue about. This brisa has them arguing about a different machlekes. Sheyikruvu. Everyone will agree that you can bring it, like Rabbi Eliezer said. We darshan from the pasuk of Reich Nichayach tells you as long as you have it, could be l'shem eitzim. So everyone agrees you can bring that. And everyone will agree also that if you have a mixture, you have a kosher carbon together with an animal that was a reveya v'nerva, that was geschachten, and now it's a question whether you could be makriv the the avarim of such an animal. Um, that certainly you can't, because that's very far. We certainly don't want to have a revei of a nirva on the mizbech. Aman nechelku. So where is the machlekes? Al ivrei oila tmi moshe avru beivrei balas mum. We're talking about something. It's not like we said, like a chatas and a oila. It's not such a big, not so harmful to have. The Torah said it's only if it's you could exclude l'reich nichayach. It's only if it's l'reich nichayach, but you can have it l'shem eitzim, and therefore that will be okay. But and if you have him, if it's you could bring something like a revei of a nirva, that's very bad. That's something we certainly don't want to say. But what about a balas mum? A balas mum is a puzzle of carbon, but it's not something that an avero has done. It's not at the level of a revei. So that's what they're chaylik under. We are able to say this is all the Rabbanans. I would imagine. I would think that this is a machlekes in the Rabbanan, the Chum Geyser. I'm not really sure. Chum say you can't. No, even a balmum is going to be treated like a revei of a nerv. In fact, the Marvel Laza Maishna revei of a nerv the lechazu balas mum dami lechazu. I'm going to ask the obvious question. Listen, in the end, a revei of a nerva, why? The reason why it's clear that you can't say it's treated like eitzim is because it's entirely precluded from being a carbon. So a balmum is also unable to be a carbon. So it should also be excluded. You shouldn't be able to bring it. How come you could say it's treated as eitzim? Amravuna bedukin sheva'ayin. We're going about a mum that's a kind of like blemish in the eye. We're going according to Rebbe Kiva that he says if you bring such a thing on the mizbeach, you don't take it down. That means even if you have a single behema, then it's im alula yardu. So therefore, if it's mixed in, you could bring it. So Gemara, Rebbe Kiva, the Avid lechatchila miyamar. What are you telling Sue from Rebbe Kiva? He says bedukan shaba'ayin is a mum that if you brought it on the mizbeach, you don't have to take it off. But Rebbe Kiva agrees you can't bring it on in the first place. So why are you saying now that we allow you to do it if it's mixed in? Amar Papa hachamaskinu sha'alu al gabi kevesh. We're talking about where it was already brought on the kevesh. So according to Rebbe Kiva, he says once it's already on the kevesh, there's no problem. You can go ahead and Rebbe Kiva Einach doesn't say you can chatchila bring it onto the kevesh, but once it's on the kevesh, that's already treated like it's enough on the mizbeach that you can proceed and burn it on the mizbeach. If that's the case, why are we talking about this case where you have a mixture of a kosher carbon with a mum that has a bedukan shaba'ayin, and that we're explaining? That's why Rabbi Eliezer said that you could bring bimak of it, even if there was no second carbon. According to Rebbe Kiva, it was already on the kevesh. You're allowed to burn it. So there's no shaychus to the machlekes Rebbe Eliezer and the Rabban. Elatamid Rebbe Eliezer miyad rachmana mum bam. The Torah says mum bam. What was the pasuk? I don't remember where the pasuk is. But in any case, the Torah, when it says that you can't bring a carbon that has a mum, it says mum bam, that there's a mum in it. So we make a drasha amiyat that it's only that you can't bring it something that has a mum on its own. But once it's mixed in with something else, then you can burn it. Doesn't mean, I don't think it means that you could bring it lechatchila, you could shecht it. I think what it means is once it's geschachten, you could burn the you could burn the avar. Rabbanan mum bam hudal yiratzu ha aver mum yiratzu. And the Rabbanan say that as when they have a mum, they can't be brought, they can't be burnt. However, mum, but if the mum is gone, yiratzu. It means if they get healed from the mum, then we don't say that it was dachui, then you could bring it. So I guess this is talking about This is talking about before the hakrava, before the shchita. If you have a live animal and has a mum, if it goes away, you could bring it. Rebbe Eliezer, I don't know why this is not a raya to the question of dichui etzel balei chayim. I'm not sure. Zok the Gemara. Rebbe Eliezer, mibom bohem. He says it says two things in the pasuk. It says bom and it says bohem. So since we have a double pasuk, we use both of them to darshan both things. First of all, that if it has a mum that goes away, that it could be brought, and second of all, that it could be brought even al yedei taruvas. So that's what Rebbe Eliezer says that you could bring it in our mid. That's why in the Brisa, Rebbe Eliezer said if it has a mum, it can be brought. If it can be brought together, the ivar mavam bal mum could be brought together with a different ivar. Rabbanim bam bahem leidashi. Frek the Gemara, ihachi raya harachmana achsherei. The problem is, if you looked at the lashon of the Brisa, Rabbi Eliezer says, Rabbi Eliezer, I'm a yikruvu, right? And ilamayla kilo in eitzim. Rabbi Eliezer says we treat it as if it's eitzim, but we're saying now it's not roya ani kilo in eitzim. The Torah is saying that if it's mixed together, it's possible, it's kosher. It doesn't say anything about that it's looked down as eitzim. When we said l'reyach nichayach, when you're darshaning from that, that's one thing, but this is not from l'reyach nichayach. Zak the Gemara, l'detchu l'divreim kamalu. So the Gemara says no. Rabbi Eliezer was saying to the Rabbanan, even according to you, lididi rachmana achshere. I hold that the Torah was machsher of something with a mum altogether. L'detchu idol miyah basar balas mum ke'etzim dami. V'dehavi abasar chatas. Why can't it be treated, even if it's a balas mum? It should at least, you should be able to bring it together with the chatas and just treat it as if it's ke'etzim. And the Rabbanon say no. Hachamisi hasam le'misi. Ultimately, because we said that the Rabbanon in this brisa were maskim that you could do a chatas together with an oila. So the Rabbanon say no, it's not a comparison. Something that has a mum is more like a reveh and nirva. It's must to be on the mizbeach. The Torah said we don't want a bal mum. A chatas we do want, we're just in the wrong circumstances. It's not supposed to be burnt, but it's not moist. It's not something that's not kosher as a carbon, but a mum is something that's not kosher as a carbon. Okay, we'll leave the Mishnah, I guess, for tomorrow.
All right. Wonderful.